Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining this meeting. This is a public information meeting that is being conducted for the Pure Water Southern California program, specifically as part of the draft environmental impact report public review process. And I'm Joan Isaacson. I'll be the facilitator, and I'll tell you more information about the meeting in just a moment. But first, I would like to have an announcement made about the availability of interpretation.
Antes de comenzar, voy a compartir las instrucciones para acceder a los servicios de interpretación. Voy a hacer esto primero en español y luego en inglés. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to give the interpretation instructions first in Spanish and then in English. Para las personas que nos acompañan hoy a través de su tableta o iPad o de su teléfono inteligente o smartphone, favor de localizar el menú en forma de 3 puntos en la parte inferior de su pantalla. De ahí pueden seleccionar Language Interpretation o interpretación del lenguaje y enseguida pueden seleccionar su idioma, en este caso el español o Spanish. Para todas las personas que nos acompañan a través de su computadora, pueden localizar el símbolo de interpretación en forma de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Hagan clic ahí y después elijan su lenguaje en español o Spanish. Ahora voy a las instrucciones en inglés. Here are the instructions in English. For all those joining us tonight through their tablets or iPads or through their smartphones, please locate the menu in the form of 3 dots on your screen. You can click there, then select Language Interpretation, and then select the language of your choice. In this case, it would be English. If you're joining us through your computer, you can locate the icon in form of a globe for interpretation at the bottom of your screen. You can click there and there select English as your language of choice. It is important for everyone to select a language. So for those folks that are joining us that are English speakers, please do select English. Joan, over to you.
Kristen, thanks. And I just want to reinforce that point that all of us should select one of the languages. And that way, when Spanish is spoken, the interpreters will interpret that back to English. And that way we'll all be able to hear and understand each other. So thanks again, Kristen. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And once again, I just want to say welcome and thank you for your interest in the Pure Water Southern California program and for taking the time to participate and be here for today's meeting. Pure Water Southern California is a program to create a new water supply. And this program is being led by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California in partnership with Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. The environmental review process for Pure Water Southern California is underway. The draft environmental impact report, sometimes it's called the EIR for short, has been completed and is now out and available for public review and comment. The overarching purpose of today's meeting is to provide information about the Pure Water Southern California program, the draft environmental impact report, and importantly, how to participate and provide comments on the draft environmental impact report. So that way, after this meeting, you'll have a head start in navigating the draft environmental impact report document and then considering your comments. So I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping items. And the first item here that I'll talk about is just to do some very short orientation about how we're using Zoom. And there are a couple of points. So the first one is if you are having any technical problems with the platform, you can't find anything in a specific function in your toolbar, use chat to communicate with our tech support. We have some really experienced Zoom users who can help you out. The second is that if you are participating by phone, when we get to the Q&A portion of the meeting, you can use *9 and that'll put you in the queue and we will unmute you when it's your turn. So even if you're on the phone, you're going to be able to participate. And then also in the Q&A portion of the meeting, we'll have 2 options for you to ask questions. And one is to use the raise hand function, and the other is to type a question into the Q&A portal. And those icons are found at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to review this again when we get to the Q&A portion of the meeting, but I just wanted to give everyone some information about that so you know what's coming. We'll go to the next slide. And we have some guides for public meetings. Be mutually respectful, ask questions. We really want you to spend this time to ask your questions and to get more information about those things that are important to you about Pure Water Southern California and the environmental review process. And then commit to everyone having time to contribute. And in my role as facilitator, I'm really here to make sure this meeting is productive for all of our community participants who are here with us. On the next slide is some more information I want to share. And that is the agenda. So our first item is what we're doing now. We're going through our announcements, the agenda overview, and soon I'll turn it over to the program team who will provide information about Pure Water Southern California, the program overview, what it is, why it's needed, what are the components. Then we'll hear about the draft environmental impact report, including what is an EIR? Why is it done? What are the components of the environmental impact report analysis? And then importantly, we'll end the presentation with information on how to participate and provide comments on the draft environmental impact report. Next then will be the questions and answer portion of the meeting. We have lots of time dedicated for that, and then we'll wrap up talking about next steps. Next slide, please. And an important note is that this is a meeting that's focused on providing information to you and answering questions. The questions that are raised during this meeting will not be documented as official comments in the draft EIR. And to be considered as documents, the comments need to be submitted in writing. And we're going to give you lots of information about how to do that. And there are different ways to submit your comments. And that way, the project team will be able to make sure that they'll have your comments and they can provide responses to them in a comprehensive way. All right. So we're going to go to the overview now. And let me make some introductions first of the project team who you're going to be hearing from. So first, we are going to hear from John Vidnarski. He is the Assistant General Manager for Water Resources and Technical Services in Metropolitan Water District. We're also going to hear from Ana Reyes. Ana is the Senior Environmental Specialist for Sustainability, Resiliency, and Innovation. Ana has been leading the preparation of the environmental review. And then we're also going to hear from Derek Zondervan, who's the Assistant Department Head for Facilities and Planning at Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. After the presentation, we're going to take questions first with John, and then John is going to have a bench of experts that he can pull in depending on the question. So, of course, Ana and Derek will still be on deck to answer questions, but then they'll also be joined by Paul Rochelle, who's the Director of Water Quality at Metropolitan, and Rupen Soni, who's the Section Manager for Media Services and Public Outreach, and then Elisa Mendez, who is the Principal Public Affairs Representative. So we're going to be set very well to hear your questions and answer them this evening. All right, John, I think I've set it up, gone through all the preliminaries, and over to you to start the presentation.
All right, Joan, thank you for those introductions. Really appreciate it. Well, good evening, everyone. And on behalf of Metropolitan Water District and the sanitation districts of Los Angeles County, I'd like to welcome you to this virtual public meeting for the Pure Water Environmental Impact Report. This is our second public meeting. We'll be having one more virtual meeting on this Saturday coming up. We're going to start, Derek and I are going to start by giving you a little bit of an overview of each of our organizations. Metropolitan Water District is the nation's largest wholesale water provider. And what does that mean to be a wholesale water provider? Metropolitan does not sell water to individual customers. We have 26 customers, which are our member agencies. Those member agencies then distribute water to approximately 19 million people in Southern California, ranging from Ventura in the north down to San Diego in the south, from the Pacific Ocean on the west out to the Riverside and San Bernardino area on the east. We're supporting a very large economy in Southern California. Some of you may be aware, in Southern California, we have the world's 11th largest economy. So it's a very important economy that depends greatly on not only Metropolitan Water District, but our 26 member agencies to do their job every day to bring water into this region. Our mission to date, we were formed in 1928, was originally to import water from the Colorado River. And then in the 1970s, we supported the State Water Project and the state of California by taking deliveries from the State Water Project from Northern California. Over time, we've also invested hundreds of millions of dollars in local projects to support the development of water locally in Southern California. Let's go to the next slide. As I mentioned, Metropolitan is a wholesale water provider. We own and operate the Colorado River Aqueduct, approximately 240-mile long aqueduct from the Colorado River that was placed in operation in the early 1940s. That was our core supply until the early 1970s, when the state of California developed this, what we call the State Water Project, that brings water from Northern California through a 350-mile long aqueduct into the southern portions of the state. Metropolitan is the largest contractor on that system. We get approximately 30% of our water supply from the State Water Project, approximately 20% from our own Colorado River Aqueduct. And the remaining 50% of our water supply, I'm happy to report, is actually locally sourced. And it's very important to locally source water, and we're very fortunate to have these large abundance of local water supplies. We have very good groundwater basins that we use as large storage reservoirs. Many of our member agencies take deliveries from Metropolitan and store that water in these groundwater basins and produce that water as pumped water later on. We also rely on snowpack in the local mountains and also rainfall to recharge those underground aquifers. San Diego also has a seawater desalination plant that counts as a local supply. So we're very, as I mentioned earlier, we're fortunate to have those local supplies. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see some added importance as far as the resiliency of these local supplies. As many of you may be aware, with the aqueducts that come into Southern California, both of those aqueducts cross the San Andreas Fault. And it is estimated that in the not too distant future, there will be large movement on the San Andreas Fault in the form of an earthquake. And there's a strong possibility that when that happens, one or more of the incoming aqueducts to Southern California could be severed. So the importance of continuing to develop and rely on local supplies is very important. Next slide, please. I think this program, honestly, is the story of two agencies that have come together with a similar vision to develop a resource that is currently now going out to the Pacific Ocean, and in turn produce a water supply that is of high quality and reliable for the region. This is a story of two very large agencies that have historically done their missions very successfully and are now embarking on a very important partnership as we move forward to maximize water recycling in the region. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Derek Zondervan to talk about the sanitation districts of Los Angeles County.
All right, thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So as John said, I'm just going to provide a little bit of background on the Los Angeles County sanitation districts for those of you who may not be familiar with our agency. And first, I also, just going back to John's previous slide, want to echo his comments. We're just really very proud and excited to be partnering with Metropolitan on this important project. And we're really looking forward to helping bring this new resilient water resource to Southern California. So if you look at the image on the slide, the sanitation districts provide wastewater collection and treatment for essentially all of Los Angeles County, except for the city of LA. So our service area is shown in green on the figure there. So we serve 78 member cities and a population of about 5.5 million people. On average, we treat about 400 million gallons of wastewater every day, and that wastewater is collected in a network of 1,400 miles of sewers, and then is treated at our 11 wastewater treatment plants. And those treatment plants are shown as triangles on the map there. So the 10 purple triangles are what we call water reclamation plants. So the wastewater is treated to a high level, and then that water is suitable for reuse in the community. If you're familiar with recycled water or reclaimed water, so we can use that clean water for irrigation of parks and schools and golf courses, or to support habitat. And then our largest treatment plant is the Warren facility, which is the lone blue triangle on the map there. And that's located down in the city of Carson. And currently, we don't reuse any of the clean water from the Warren facility. So it's all sent out to the ocean after we treat it. But we're hoping to change that with this project, because the site of the proposed Pure Water Southern California Advanced Water Purification Facility is at the Warren facility. So if I could jump to the next slide, please. Okay, this is an aerial view of our Warren facility, and the treatment plant is outlined in orange. And again, as I mentioned, it's located in the city of Carson. It's along the east side of the 110 freeway. You can see that in the background there. At Sepulveda Boulevard is the closest exit. And this facility currently treats about 250 million gallons per day of wastewater. And historically, the wastewater of this plant has been too salty for reuse. So we consider this our largest untapped source of clean water for reuse within our system. But now with the Pure Water Southern California treatment facilities, we can finally make use of this very valuable resource. And as far as the treatment process, you're going to hear a little bit more about that a few slides from now. So the proposed location for the advanced water purification facility is outlined in the light blue. And that's a 52-acre site that we, the sanitation districts, purchased a few decades ago to act as buffer property for the Warren facility. So it provides, separation from the treatment facilities and the neighboring community. And this is really an ideal location for the advanced purification facility, not only because it's vacant and available, but also it's right next door to the source water at the Warren facility that's going to supply the new treatment facilities. Last thing I want to point out is you'll see the Napolitano Innovation Center. So that's a demonstration facility at the site that Metropolitan built about 6 years or so ago. And that's being used to test the treatment processes that will then be used later at the future full-scale purification facility. And you'll hear more about the Napolitano Innovation Center as well a little bit later on in this presentation. So thank you all again for joining us tonight. And with that, John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Derek. When it comes to water supply reliability and resiliency in Southern California, the impacts of climate change are very real. There's less snow in the local mountains, there's less snow in the Sierra Nevada, and there's less snow in the Rockies. More fires has been evidenced by the horrific fires that impacted Southern California earlier this year. And then we're sometimes stricken by dramatic increases in flooding. And the dry years are likely to get more often and also drier. Next slide, please. So Metropolitan's response to this sort of unsure future going forward as far as water supply is concerned is to develop what we call a climate adaptation master plan for water. This is a plan that has been recently approved by our board of directors with two primary pillars. One is to develop a vision and a plan for ensuring water supply reliability. And the second pillar is to develop a plan to ensure financial stability and sustainability for Metropolitan as an organization as we move forward through these challenging times. As far as water supply reliability, this is where the Pure Water program fits in order to give us a drought-proof supply of water going into the future. But we need to make sure as we're making these investments that we're able to maintain affordable water rates. We're making sound investments not building infrastructure that will ultimately become stranded and not used, looking for opportunities to do project cost sharing with project partners, and also establishing regional partnerships like the one that you've heard about between Metropolitan and the sanitation districts. Next slide. Additional goals of the Climate Action Plan for water include increasing the resiliency and the reliability of the water supply for Southern California, increasing the amount of local supplies that are used and being able to lessen our reliability on imported water supplies, providing greater flexibility of our delivery systems to move water from one location to another that was never envisioned by the original designers and builders of Metropolitan's system. And like I mentioned on the previous slide, ensuring that there's equitable access to affordable water for all people. So taking cost into consideration as we develop this new program is of paramount importance to the project team and to both of our organizations. Next slide. So the Pure Water Southern California program will be Metropolitan's first in-region water supply. It's going to be locally sourced, climate resilient, and a high quality water supply produced that will be able to be used for a variety of uses. And I'll touch on those as we go through the presentation. Next slide. Let's start with a high-level overview of the program. As Derek explained, the A.K. Warren facility does a very good job of treating the wastewater that is collected throughout portions of Los Angeles County and then discharging that per their discharge regulations out to the Pacific Ocean. That water is now the new source for the pure water facilities, and it will be purified at Metropolitan's Advanced Water Purification Facility. Additional treatment will be added to the A.K. Warren facility as a pre-treatment, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes before the water is purified through reverse osmosis and advanced oxidation processes. The water will then be conveyed to its ultimate destination, and this conveyance system will include approximately 40 miles of pipelines, pump stations, groundwater spreading facilities, as it makes its way either to industries, groundwater replenishment uses, or perhaps as we fully build out the system into Metropolitan's own water treatment plants for retreatment and then distribution into our existing potable water or drinking water system. It's going to be a new climate resistant supply for Southern California, as I've mentioned a couple times before. Next slide. As described in the environmental document that's available to all of you, the maximum build out of this project is 150 million gallons per day. It will be one of the largest projects of its kind in the world and will provide enough water for 1.5 million people within Southern California. Next slide. Let's talk about some of the benefits of the program, and we've really broken these up into 3 different tiers. One is the water supply benefit. It's a sustainable supply of water, whether we're in drought conditions or had a bountiful winter of snow that's run off and been collected into our aqueducts. This water will be available 24/7, 365 days a week. It will thereby increase water resiliency to Southern California, allow us to replenish groundwater basins, and as I've said before, will create a new local supply of water. There's also environmental benefits from this program. This purified source will enhance water quality, especially in the groundwater basins, as it's used as a source to replenish those basins. We'll be using the largest untapped source of wastewater in the region. Other projects similar to this are currently in the planning or development stage, and they will also be coming online in the not too distant future. But collectively together, this program will allow us, Metropolitan, to reduce its reliance on imported supplies. Finally, there's economic benefits from this program, and I'll go into some of the details in future slides, but suffice to say, this $8 billion program will fuel economic growth and will also generate jobs, not only during construction, but long-term operational jobs, both at Metropolitan and at the county sanitation districts. Next slide. Here's a map of the facilities that we currently envision and are covered in the environmental document. As Derek pointed out, on the 52-acre site at the A.K. Warren facility, that will be the site for the advanced water purification facility. From there, there will be about 40 miles of 7-foot diameter pipe that will carry the water first to the east and then north along the San Gabriel River corridor up to what we call the Santa Fe spreading grounds. These will be the primary recharge facilities for the water. Along the way, as you can see in those dashed circles, there will be opportunities to offtake some of the water, either for groundwater replenishment purposes or for municipal and commercial uses. And then in the top right, you can see some dashed lines that will take the water over to what we refer to as our FE Weymouth water treatment plant. This is one of Metropolitan's 5 water treatment plants in Southern California. And the vision for the Pure Water program is that a portion of the water that's produced in Carson will be delivered to the Weymouth plant and then ultimately down to the Deemer plant in Yorba Linda. At that point, the pure water supplies will be blended with our imported supplies from the Colorado River and the State Water Project, and then retreated at these plants before that water is then sent out into Metropolitan's existing distribution system. Next slide. Pure water provides additional benefits to the region, but these are not specifically quantified in the programmatic EIR. They are covered, but not quantified. And some of those additional and supplemental programs that are benefiting by the Pure Water program include Metropolitan's Climate Action Plan, the Climate Adaptation Master Plan that I talked about earlier, the goal to develop sustainable infrastructure, providing community benefits and improvements to the region and in the neighborhood of the facilities that are going to be built. Providing community outreach to educate the community about the benefits of locally sourcing this water for beneficial use. And finally, the important area of workforce development, both in the area of construction jobs and long-term operational jobs that will be developed through the development of this program. Next slide. Let's talk for a few minutes about the workforce development initiatives that Metropolitan is including with this program. First off is an important project labor agreement that was adopted by Metropolitan's board several years ago. At the time this project labor agreement was negotiated with the labor unions, it was agreed to include all aspects of the Pure Water program within this project labor agreement. This project labor agreement will ensure that the wages paid to all of the construction workers on this program are prevailing wage levels, and that there will be the use of local labor force and the development of apprenticeship opportunities to participate in the construction of these facilities. A second aspect of this program is the development of the Workforce Training Center. Both Metropolitan and the sanitation districts recognize the need to develop the workforce that will operate these facilities going into the future, operate and maintain these facilities, I should say. So we're committed to developing on the AK Warren site a workforce training center that will be part of this program. And then finally, we're developing a pilot program to get the word out to K through 12 education programs, job readiness programs, and internship programs about long-term job opportunities in the water and wastewater industry. The amount of investment in this program is substantial. Approximately $8 billion is estimated to need to be invested to develop the program to its full capacity of 150 million gallons per day. 2,500 permanent jobs will be created by the development of this program, and approximately 75,000 job years will be created during the construction period for the program. Total together, the $8 billion investment in the program will develop approximately $15 billion in economic benefits for the region. Next slide, please. Metropolitan recognizes the importance of developing outreach to our communities. It's through community support that we will get acceptance of this program as we design and construct it and operate it. Metropolitan is continuously conducting tours, presentations, and other types of events to draw the public in, to teach them about the importance of this program and the benefits of purified water for this region. This information is available on Metropolitan's website, through our social media channels, occasionally in the news, and all of the different multilingual materials that are being produced. A lot of this can be found, and I would direct you to Metropolitan's website for easy access to a lot of these tools for informational purposes. Next slide. The program's development took place on a solid foundation of applied science and engineering. And that started with the development of the Grace Napolitano Pure Water Innovation Center. This represents approximately $20 million investment by Metropolitan and the sanitation districts to bring this testing facility online in 2019. At this location, both organizations are able to test the innovative purification process that's planned for the Pure Water program. We're using it as a platform to obtain the regulatory approvals necessary to operate the treatment process that will produce the water. We're also getting important information from the testing that's ongoing now as far as the cost for the full-scale program. And finally, we're using this facility to gain public support by conducting countless tours through the facility. Next slide, please. When we embarked upon this program in the mid-2000s, there wasn't a lot of science that existed in the area for the treatment processes that we envisioned for this program. So we first looked outward, going first to Australia, building upon research that had been done in Australia on the type of treatment process that we were envisioning to look for. But then we did a lot of this cutting edge work at the Napolitano Center ourselves over the last 5 to 6 years. And through that process, we've been able to develop confidence in the water treatment process that we'll be using as a way to purify the water. Next slide, please. So what are those processes? Let me start first with the AK Warren facility. A number of improvements will be made to that facility, but probably most important to that is the sanitation districts designing and constructing the first step of the treatment process, or what we refer to as the pre-treatment process for the advanced purification process. And that involves the introduction of the membrane bioreactors into the AK Warren treatment facility. A portion of that facility's secondary treatment process will be converted to the membrane bioreactor process to provide enough pre-treated water to go on to Metropolitan's advanced purification facilities. The advanced purification facilities consist of reverse osmosis and advanced oxidation, which would consist of ultraviolet light and an oxidant that is applied to the water at the same time as the light is applied to the water. Next slide, please. A lot of this testing, as I said, took place at the Napolitano Innovation Center. And the key goals of the testing program, beyond just the pure scientific development, were to allow for transparency of the work that we were doing, both for the regulators and for the general public. We also wanted to use the Napolitano Center as a way to seek feedback on our testing programs. And then finally, to share the data with the reuse community, the regulators, and the general public. So as I said, this testing program has been ongoing for approximately 10 years. While the Napolitano Center has been in operation for about 5 years, it's been testing large scale, or what we call full scale, components of an advanced treatment system. We've had an ongoing arrangement with an independent science advisory panel to advise us on the types of tests that we should be doing, the way the Napolitano Center was developed, and advice on how to move forward with gaining regulatory approval. We first brought the regulators on board about 10 years ago with our initial meetings to talk to them about the effort that we're about to undertake. And we've continued to include them throughout the entire process. We feel that we are on track to meet the state's expectations and the regulatory requirements that are necessary to produce purified water for the uses intended under this program. Next slide, please. To conduct a large program like this takes a lot of partners. No one organization could probably pull off this endeavor by themselves. So that, as you know, Metropolitan and the County of Los Angeles have teamed together a number of years ago, but there's a lot of other partners that are involved presently also. First and foremost, below the two key partners are Metropolitan's member agencies. These are the agencies that will actually purchase the water from Metropolitan and then use it for a variety of purposes, including groundwater recharge purposes and also some commercial and industrial uses. We've also been collaborating with the groundwater basin water masters. These are the folks that are in charge of managing the several large groundwater basins that we expect this water will be introduced into. Been working closely with them in conjunction with our member agencies to understand the needs for this water, the timing, the quantities of water to be received by them. We've also been working with Colorado River Partners, and one might ask, why are the state of Nevada and Arizona interested in this project? Well, they see the potential for investing in this project as a way to help Metropolitan and the sanitation districts build this project, and in return, release some of our dependence on the Colorado River supply. So for a monetary investment, Metropolitan and these two states are considering an exchange where Metropolitan would exchange some of our water on the Colorado River to both of these states in return for their financial investments in the program. And then finally, we have other partners at the bottom of the screen. I'll point out one of them, Southern California Edison. As I mentioned earlier, a significant portion of our pipeline will go along the San Gabriel River. We've been working with Southern California Edison for a number of years and have recently secured their acceptance and permission to co-locate our pipeline within their high voltage transmission corridor. We think this is a very innovative way to minimize the amount of construction that will take place in the community streets that surround the program boundaries. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the program schedule. We're currently in the environmental planning stage, but at the same time, we're also conducting some of the design activities related to the program. The environmental planning stage will be completed in early 2026, when we're hopeful that we'll take the environmental impact report to our board and they will certify it as an accepted document. But we haven't been waiting for the environmental document to be certified to begin our design activities. Through some advanced funding that we've received, we've been able to make great strides in advancing some of the important design work related to both the advanced water treatment facility and also the conveyance pipeline. We expect that construction, upon receiving our board's support for the program in early 2026, we expect construction to start about 2 years after that and will continue until the mid-2030s or into the late 2030s, with startup of the facilities as shown on this slide in the mid-2030s, or depending on the size of the program initially adopted by our board, that could stretch out a few years to 2040. Next slide. To fund a large program like this, it really pays dividends to be creative in finding outside funding to reduce the amount that both of the partners here have to invest themselves. So far, Metropolitan and the sanitation districts have received over $100 million in outside funding, and that funding has allowed us to start some of the design activities on the project that I already mentioned. Earlier this year, Metropolitan received a $125 million grant from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. We will use that grant to offset some of our costs as we continue with our design activities. Next slide. So at this time, what I'd like to do is take a pause and turn it over to Ana Reyes to talk about the draft environmental impact report. Ana?
Thank you, John. Before diving into the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, I wanted to discuss the California Environmental Quality Act to put the EIR in context. And the California Environmental Quality Act, which is typically referred to as CEQA, is basically a state law designed to protect the environment. It does this by making sure that public agencies carefully evaluate and share any potential environmental impacts before moving forward with the project, such as pure water, for example. CEQA is actually considered one of the strongest environmental protection laws in the country. It helps promote transparency and accountability by ensuring that any environmental effects are identified and addressed before decisions are made. So how does CEQA relate to the Pure Water project? Well, under CEQA, if a proposed project might have a significant effect on the environment, an environmental impact report has to be prepared. And because of the size and scope of Pure Water, an EIR was needed. The EIR process also gives the public a chance to weigh in on the environmental analysis, which makes CEQA a powerful tool for community involvement. It helps ensure that public input plays a role in shaping the final outcome of a project. Next slide, please. The environmental review process for an EIR kicks off with what's called the scoping phase. During scoping, the lead agency, like Metropolitan in this case, asks for feedback from the public, local communities, and regulatory agencies. And the goal is really to help define what should be studied in the environmental analysis. And that includes identifying possible impacts, suggesting ways to reduce those impacts, and even proposing alternatives to the project. It's a key step because it ensures that community voices and regulatory concerns are taken into account early on before the detailed analysis even begins. For Pure Water, Metropolitan held a 45-day scoping period from September 30th to November 14, 2022 to collect the public's input. After the scoping phase was completed, Metropolitan initiated preparation of the draft EIR. And the draft EIR takes a close look at the potential environmental impacts of the project across a wide range of topics. And we'll go over those in more detail shortly. We spent several years conducting the environmental analysis and preparing the EIR, and it's now out for public review. And the public review period is from May 14th to July 14th, 2025. And during the public review period, the public, including community members, agencies, and other stakeholders, can submit comments or feedback on the draft EIR. And once you submit your comments, they will be considered and addressed in the final EIR, which is scheduled for board review, as John indicated, in early 2026. Next slide. The EIR analyzed several key components of the program, and these generally include treatment facilities such as the Advanced Water Purification Facility in Carson, the conveyance system, which features a 39-mile backbone pipeline and pump stations, and groundwater recharge facilities to help replenish local water supplies. Next slide. In case you're wondering what we do analyze in the EIR, as you'll see on the slide, the draft EIR takes a very detailed look at a wide range of environmental resource categories. The items you see on the slide were all thoroughly evaluated as part of the analysis. And as an example, these could include air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and noise, and the list contains all the other topics that we looked at. Some other topics like agriculture or forestry resources were also reviewed, but they were found not to have the potential for significant impacts. And those are covered in a separate chapter of the report called Environmental Effects Found Not to Be Significant. If you think we are missing a topic, it is likely in the Effects Found Not to Be Significant chapter. Next slide. Key considerations. So as you review the EIR, there are a few helpful things to keep in mind, and I'll go over some of these in more detail in a minute. First, you should note the level of analysis. Some parts of the project are studied in more detail than others, depending on the level of information that we have for the various components. Second, there's an important distinction between environmental commitments and mitigation measures, which I'll also discuss. And finally, if you're looking for more details, the references and appendices are included at the end of each chapter or resource section. And we've also made all of those references available on our website so that you could easily find them. Next slide, please. So the level of analysis is the first thing to consider. Because different parts or components of the program are at varying stages of planning and design, we took a combined approach to our analysis in the EIR, and we looked at it from both a program level and project level perspective to assess our environmental impacts. And what does that mean? So at the program level, the EIR provides a broader overview of the entire program, especially for components where only conceptual information is available. Components that are only included in the program level analysis would require more detailed site-specific environmental assessments as designs are finalized for these components. For the components that already have enough design and technical detail, the EIR includes a project level analysis, which is really a more in-depth evaluation of potential impacts. When you get to the section that covers environmental resource categories, such as biological resources, you'll see a chart at the beginning of each section that clearly identifies the components that were analyzed at the program level and the components that were analyzed at the project level. And so hopefully all this will make sense when you review the document. And we use this approach of a program and project level assessment to ensure that we conducted a comprehensive analysis of the entire program, even with varying levels of detail for the different components. Next slide. Environmental commitments versus mitigation measures is the second thing to consider. For pure water, there are essentially two ways that we're addressing potential environmental impacts. And the first way is through what's called environmental commitments. And these are proactive measures built into the project design. And they include standard practices like installing silt fencing to manage erosion, as well as sustainability practices such as the energy recovery devices we're installing to reduce energy use. And because environmental commitments are included in the design, they are actually described up front and they're factored into the environmental analysis. But even with those environmental commitments in place, our analysis found that there could still be potentially significant impacts in some areas. And that's where the second approach comes in the form of mitigation measures. These are additional measures that we propose to reduce or avoid significant impacts that were identified during the environmental review. And you'll see those mitigation measures described after the analysis section. And then one more important item to note is that all environmental commitments and mitigation measures will be incorporated into the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, or MMRP, as some of you may know, for the project. And this will make them fully enforceable under CEQA if the project is approved. Next slide, please. So what are the main conclusions from our analysis? Well, the good news is that most environmental impacts could be reduced to less than significant levels through design features, environmental commitments, and the mitigation measures I just spoke about. That said, there are still a few impacts primarily related to construction that can't be fully avoided, which is why we've identified them as significant and unavoidable. And those are shown on the slide, and they include air quality, cultural resources, noise, and tribal cultural resources. The first is air quality. And to be conservative, we modeled a compressed construction schedule with overlapping work in case there was a potential that the schedule would allow for this. And although this approach overstates the actual air quality impacts we're anticipating, we were still able to reduce impacts to less than significant levels by implementing the environmental commitments and mitigation measures, with the exception of carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide emissions could exceed the threshold, but really only during short-term peak or the busiest construction periods. However, it is important to note that the region already meets state and federal standards for carbon monoxide. And this particular air pollutant is not a significant problem. However, to err on the cautious side, we identified this impact as significant and unavoidable. For cultural and tribal cultural resources, there is always the potential for buried unknown resources. And also because we don't know the exact location of certain components of the project, such as the pump stations, we can't say with certainty whether there could be impacts on these resources. And because of that, we've taken a conservative approach and also identified these impacts as significant and unavoidable, even with environmental commitments and mitigation measures. And the last resource category is noise. Because the project spans nearly 20 different jurisdictions, each with its own noise standards, we developed a consistent construction noise threshold specific to pure water to ensure that all communities would be treated equitably. And in doing so, we selected the most protective threshold designed for single-family homes, and we applied it to all noise-sensitive areas, even in areas that may not have had a noise limit. Even with mitigation, some construction noise could still exceed the threshold that we developed. And this is due to a variety of factors, such as the length of the pipeline alignment, differences in site conditions, and the fact that for some components, we still only have conceptual level information. And because of these factors, we considered these impacts as significant and unavoidable as well. This is specifically for construction, with the exception of the joint treatment site in Carson, where noise levels will remain within acceptable noise limits. On a positive note, once construction is complete, operations at all the facilities are not expected to exceed any noise limits. Next slide, please. Under CEQA, an EIR has to look at what we call a reasonable range of alternatives to the proposed project, including a no project alternative. The slide you're seeing shows the different alternatives that were evaluated in the EIR. And these include options like reducing the amount of water to be purified, changing the size of the pipeline, using different treatment options, or adjusting the pipeline's alignment. And the goal of exploring these alternatives is really to see if there's a way to avoid or reduce significant environmental impacts while still meeting most of the program's objectives. And you'll find a full discussion of each of these alternatives in the alternatives chapter of the EIR. Next slide, please. Okay, let's discuss comments. Next slide. Tips for writing. Uh-oh. Is that the right one? Yes. Sorry, I might be on the wrong slide. Can you go back? There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, as I touched upon earlier, this public review and comment period is your chance to take a look at how we evaluated the environmental impacts, both during construction and during long-term operation, and how we've proposed to reduce those impacts. Your review can help make sure the analysis is thorough and that all potential impacts are considered and addressed. If you have a question or comment, please state it clearly so that we can address it as thoroughly as possible in the final EIR. If we're not certain what you're asking, we may not be able to address the question as directly as you'd like. Next slide, please. Okay, to submit your comments, we've developed 3 options, and these options are also described on the Pure Water website in case you can't write them down right now. And the first option is via email to our environmental planning section at ep@mwdh2o.com. And for this option, we ask that you please include Pure Water draft EIR on the subject line to ensure our team receives your email. The second option is through our online portal on the Pure Water website. And it's really simple, actually. If you go to the website and you open the portal, there's a form that you can just fill in and submit your comments, and we will get them immediately. And the third way is through US mail addressed to me. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joan.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks, John. There's a lot of information. It's a big project, and it's a very comprehensive analysis in the EIR. So we really appreciate you just spending the time to give us that important information. We're going to transition to the Q&A portion of the meeting, and we're going to also end the recording. And let me just give you some information about how to participate in the Q&A portion. So you can enter your question in the Q&A feature or portal that's in Zoom. And that is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Sometimes you have to put your mouse at the bottom of your screen, and then like once you hover at the bottom, the toolbar will pop up.